Well, what's up and welcome to the Beyond Sundays podcast. I'm the host, Brett Stewart, and today my guest, my friend, is Hayley Humphrey. Hayley, how's it going?
It's great. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. I wish that this was on video so y'all could see how big of a smile she has on her face. I think it's honestly some of the most like joy and enthusiasm that any guest has displayed.
I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it.
So I've known Hayley for a handful of years now. So I've talked about it before on the podcast. I used to be the young adults pastor here at Beltway Park Church and one of the group's pastors. And Hayley was and is in the young adults ministry. And she was like one of my big three leaders. And so I remember there was one young adult night we had, and I pretty much told her that, I don't know, either you're getting into a group or you're going to be a leader.
Yeah, my first one. You looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're joining a group tonight." And I was like, "You're right, I am."
Yes.
Like, I knew going into it that I was, but then, I mean, it happened.
And then it happened. And then shortly after that, you started being like a co-leader and then a leader. And what's really awesome is it got to such a place where Hayley and two other guys, I really like leaned on them because I valued their passion, their heart, their vision for what they were doing. And I wanted to like empower it and bless it. And so like I have all this joy about Hayley because she's just one of those people that you can trust with details, put something in her court, and she's going to like run with it and do it well. And so that's just a little background on my relationship and interaction with Hayley. We also went on a mission trip to Kenya together a couple years ago. I guess it's been
2019. Yeah.
2019. So 3 years ago. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, but we both have a heart for Kenya for sure. But yeah, Hayley, I want to kind of get the run through of your journey in all the different jobs and roles that you have done or still currently do, but also kind of how the Lord has refined and brought clarity to what makes your heart come alive and how you desire to not only love and serve God, but love and serve people. Yeah. And so from what I know, you've been in the banking world and your family is in the insurance industry and you did some of that. And I know that you had a clothing store and all this stuff and design. So let's just start from wherever you want to start. What prompted those things? Obviously, we'll get to, you have a tremendous heart for missions. Yeah. But even as you were in some different roles, where was that stirring and desire for missions within all of that? So take it away.
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, I think it pretty much starts, I grew up in the church, growing up like really, really, really small, like 5 and under. My dad was like a worship pastor, music minister kind of thing. And so we went from like church to church my whole life, landed at First Baptist whenever I was in kindergarten, I guess, and grew up there. And it was whenever I was 12 years old, I had gone to Super Summer. It was like a Christian leadership camp, little week, if you can call that a camp at Hardin Simmons. And it was at that camp that I was like, oh, there's a calling that just happened. And I was so excited about it. And it was at that point that there was a mission trip to Tokyo that came up through iGo Global. And I was like, oh, I need to go on that. And just knew that I was being called to ministry. And I knew, I think deep down without maybe realizing it, that it was mission specific. And so from the age of 12 on, I was like, I'm going to be like this missionary. If you had asked me in middle school, I would have told you I was going to be a missionary in Kenya. Later middle school, early high school.
That's pretty early on for someone to be like, I'm going to be a missionary in Kenya, Africa.
Like, that's so specific. Like, where did that come from other than the Lord? But,
seriously, like, where did Kenya come from?
At the age of 12.
Right.
fascinating. We'll get to it. But so I kind of went through that. Then whenever I was in high school, I was like, no, like maybe youth ministry is it. And so then kind of went through high school thinking that I was going to be a youth pastor was going to go to Hardin-Simmons and get like a ministry degree or biblical studies. And then my senior year of high school hit. I guess maybe sophomore year, I no longer felt the call to ministry. There was a really big disconnect between me and what was going on in the church. I was a ballerina, fun fact, for like 13 years of my life. That was like every night of the week, both days of the weekend. And so that for me came first. I was humble brag. I was real good.
Humble brag. I humble brag all the time.
No, I was pretty good. Went to lots of like summer intensives, and summer going into my senior year, I actually went to the international ballet competition.
Whoa.
So it's like the Olympics of ballet, where like you compete for 4 years and then like you go and then you compete with people all over the world.
Wow.
I wasn't a competitor. I just was like in the dance school.
Yeah.
But because of my involvement in ballet, it took me away from the church. I also had like a disconnect with the youth pastor at that time because of how active I was in ballet. I wasn't around all the time. So anyway, there was that big disconnect. And so kind of going into my senior year of high school, I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because on one hand, I have a heart for business. Like I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I could do that, but like I also like in my free time draw houses and like the architecture kinds of things. So like I love interior design, but like I also love this other thing, and but then there's also ministry, and how does that kind of all tie together?
All fit?
Right.
Yeah.
And for a 17-year-old, like 2 + 2 do not equal 4 in that situation.
Yeah.
And so I went and I took like an aptitude test, and it was like, you should do architecture and engineering. Like, you're really good at that. And I was like, sweet. Except for that my mind was like, no, small business, because like I can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Which was what, I guess, whenever I was looking at being a missionary, in Kenya, my parents and those that were around me were like, no, like that's a really like dangerous job. And like, you probably won't get paid very much. And I was like, as a 14-year-old, like, money's a big deal. Like I need to like, have all the nice things and live in a massive house and, things that matter in life. But, so I kind of got talked out of ministry because of money. And with that, architecture, engineering, and business were kind of what I was focusing on. And so kind of at the last minute, I had gotten into the architecture and engineering schools at Texas Tech. And then I had gotten into the business school at Hardin-Simmons, and at like the last minute, like I had not made a decision. It was like April 27th, I think, like we're talking last minute. Took a tour of Hardin-Simmons, and I was like, okay, so we're signing up for classes. So I guess that means I'm going here, and got my bachelor's from Hardin-Simmons in economics and finance. And then a year later graduated with my MBA. So Master's of Business Administration. And from there immediately went into like the business world. Started working at a bank like the Monday after I graduated. My big heart was like, I wanted to have people's dreams come true. Like whether that was like buying a house, or like, if it was like an ag loan of like, I need a cow, like, let me make that happen for you. Cause like I can see like the long-term effect. Like I want to be a part of that like dream making process. Cool. And so went into the bank. They didn't have like a mortgage position open at the time, or like a loan position, but they had a part-time teller. And I was like, I'm in grad school. Like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Within a couple of months, I became full-time. A couple months after that, a loan, I guess it was technically a mortgage assistant position opened up. And I was like, I would love to be considered for it. And so I became like I was full-time teller, but then also mortgage assistant and right-hand man to the president. And I was working in like the proof department, and it was a really small bank. There were only like 20 of us that were working there across both campuses, locations.
Yeah. We're in the church world. We talk about campuses.
I go to church. I love
locations.
That. And so it was a really small bank, but I was a hand in everything. And from I guess, the time that I started to 9 months later, whenever I was leaving, I went from part-time to being offered an officer position at the bank as a 22-year-old grad student being offered an officer position. And I was like, yeah, like, this is awesome, but like, let me pray about it. So I come home that night, and my dad, at that point, was working in an insurance agency that my great-grandfather started, that then at that point my grandfather owned. My grandfather and my grandmother, his wife, obviously, who was the daughter of like the founder of the agency, were both diagnosed with cancer within about 3 weeks of each other. And so they were both retiring because they needed to have the time to do all of like the cancer treatment that they needed. And my dad was like, well, I really need your help at the office. And I was like, on the same day, I'm being offered both of these. Like, what do I do? So like, let's seek additional prayer.
Yeah.
And really felt like I needed to go help my family. And family is massive to me. I have an incredible family that means the absolute world to me. And me coming in and helping them out was a no-brainer to me. I felt a lot of peace about that. And I was there for about 3 years. Within that time, I felt like the Lord was asking me to pursue my heart for fashion, which doesn't necessarily sound like a ministry opportunity, immediately it doesn't. But for me, it was, I want to take a woman of God, a daughter of God that doesn't see herself as that, and getting to empower her and show herself that she as herself is beautiful and perfect because the Lord created her that way. And if I could get, one person in my store, whether online or at a pop-up, that was able to see herself as being beautiful in the Lord's eyes and getting to see herself in the way that the Lord sees her, then my job was done.
Yeah.
I had an incredible time with that. I had my store open for about a year. I was having pop-ups fairly regularly, but at my last one, it was my biggest one. We made, the most money that I've ever made at an event like that.
Yeah.
It was really, really kind of bittersweet going into it. I knew that it was going to be my last one. The Lord was preparing me of like, I'm preparing you. Like it's an awesome thing, but knowing that it was my last one was really hard, kind of going into it grieving success. And I packed up all of my stuff that day, and to this day have not touched it. And that was in November of 2019.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And right before.
Yeah. Well, and at that time I was preparing to like open up a brick and mortar store, and then like COVID happened 3 months later. So I'm really like thankful that the Lord like provided for me in that way. But it was in that time that I met Brett. And it was at my first young adult event. I had started coming to Beltway in like June or July, and this was like September. We had a young adult event, and as I'm there, I like know nobody, like thinking I'm going to be like just this loner. I actually knew a lot of people that were there and got really connected to those people immediately, but found myself at this little table up at the front. And Brett is talking about how there's going to be a young adult mission trip to Kenya this summer. And I was like, okay, so I'm on fire now. Like, where we have to go. Like, I've always wanted to go there. And he said like how much it would be. And I was like, oh, I can totally pay for that myself. Like, totally pay for that myself. But like, I want to make sure that like this is something that the Lord wants for me to do. And so really sat on it, prayed about it for, probably a couple of months. Emailed Brett shortly thereafter about what it would look like for me to go. And in January, we had like our first like interest meeting, whatever. And even then I was like, I just don't know like if this is what the Lord wants me to do. And Brett looked at me and was like, if you were going to share God's heart for someone with them, like how could that not be his plan?
Yeah. I don't know if it was that young adult night or another one, but it was, sometimes we get tripped up on like, is this the Lord's heart? Is this what the Lord wants me to do? And sometimes we look at it through such a very small lens or glass. And yeah, my response to that and to even just processing this is like, man, if you're going to love and serve people and share hope of Jesus and just love them and like empower them, like that is absolutely the kingdom of God. Like that is God's desire. Like sometimes we ask so specifically, and there are times and seasons for that. But sometimes it's like we wait on the Lord to give us a yes that he's already given us, because he's revealed to us who he is, and he's told us to pursue him and to become like him.
Yeah, exactly. And so then that day, after he made that comment, I was like, dang, he's so right. And so then I go home, I like fill out the application. Within an hour, I was like accepted onto the trip. I was so excited because I'd always wanted to go.
Yeah. Because Kenya randomly has been in your mind or heart since you were, did you say 14?
12. Yeah. But the best part about it was that I had completely forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, I've always wanted to go, like, Africa, like, let's go. And then in the process of getting there and, like, the fundraising process, like, I sent out a support letter. And I ended up being like $1,600, $1,800 overfunded by the end of everything. Like the Lord asked me to go, and there was like a deadline that came up, and I was like, I have like $5 that I can give to this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get $700 in a week. And the Lord said, all you have to do is ask. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go and like share like my link on Facebook and let's see what happens. And that afternoon, someone had, before I had even like gotten the link from Facebook, someone had given $300 anonymously to my trip. And I was like, okay, so I guess we're really doing this. And okay, I'm putting a really big question mark on you. Like this is on you. And that next Tuesday was the day after the like due date. In my mind, there was no way for me to write a support letter, mail it, have it in people's like mailboxes, them read it, and then like pray about it, feel led to write a check, then mail it, and then for Beltway to receive it. There was no way within like 5 days that all that was going to happen. But Tuesday morning, the day after the deadline, I woke up and I just really knew that the Lord was asking me to stay home from work that day. And I was like, okay, like I'll call in sick. Like, that's fine. So I told my dad, hey, I'm not feeling well. It ain't happening today. And, which was true, by the way, Dad, if you're listening to this. But it was about lunchtime, and I realized that I had not gotten an email from Beltway saying like, hey, like you're, past, this deadline, like blah, blah, blah. So I checked my account, and to the penny, I had raised exactly what I needed to in 5 days from the support letter. I had not done anything. Yeah. And I was like, okay, the rest is on you, Lord. Yeah. Like, I have no idea how you did that other than you're God. Like, and that's it. And so the rest of the time, I just kind of went, knowing that he was going to take care of everything. And he did. He's so faithful. And I'm so thankful for all of that. But getting to Kenya, it's so crazy looking back at that time, getting to see all of the growth that I had gone through, all of the attacks from the enemy that I experienced, even leading up to like the night of. Brett, you don't know this. I contemplated the night before we left calling in sick the next morning because I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Yeah. We get to Kenya. I was experiencing so much culture shock. So like our first thing that we did, we like went into one of the slum areas in Kenya. It's the second largest slum area in Nairobi, where the ministry that we were working with has a partner church that operates a school. And so they had all of these kids. And I mean, it's a fairly small room, and it's packed full of people and it's awesome. But I was like, I'm not cut out for this. Like like my bag touched like the ground. I was like, I need a Clorox wipe now. Like, this is just so different than what I have ever experienced. And so,
and the room that we're in, first of all, yes, it's small, and there's probably 5 times as many people stuffed in there that needs to be. There's one like light bulb that's in the room that's turned on. There's a second story that's kind of a second story, but there's a bunch of like gaps in the slats of the wood. And so anyone that's upstairs, like dirt is falling through, dirt and debris is falling through the ceiling and like landing on you. And
exactly.
I mean, it is quite the first experience if you haven't ever stepped into something like that.
I've lived in Abilene my whole life.
Yeah.
Like traveling internationally was Kenya for me. Like that was it. And so after that trip, or during that trip, I knew that this is where the Lord had me. We went out to one of the grounds of the ministry. My feet touched the ground, and I knew that it was where I was being called.
Yeah.
And my heart was absolutely captured by these people, by these kids, by this ministry. And I knew that that's what the Lord had. And I came back, and that was all that I could talk about for like a long time.
A long time.
A long time. Every day of my life was, Lord, get me back.
Yeah.
How do I get back there? And it was within that time that the Lord had kind of been growing in me, like, hey, like this clothing business of yours, like it's coming to an end. And I mean, like within me getting back from that trip, I think it was like 4 months later that I had laid that down. And I knew that the Lord was calling me to give my whole life to the things that he had given me a heart to, which were this ministry in Kenya. It's called HOPE. It stands for Hope, Opportunity, Purpose, Eternity. To give my life to that, to life group leading, and to Beltway. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know what that's going to look like, because what you're asking me to do is laying down my 9-to-5 job, is laying down my business that I love, that I have grown from the ground up. I like built the website. I have curated everything. I've prayed into everything.
Just recently made more money than you ever had in one event. Yeah.
Right. And it was like,
a lot of success.
People are seeing what we're doing and they're excited about it. And like people are coming out specifically for our booth at these pop-ups. And it was awesome. And then I'm being asked to lay it all down.
Yeah. And
there was so much of a grieving process that happened, but I'm so thankful now on the other side that all of that happened. After coming back from Kenya, within a couple of months, I was asked to come on as volunteer social media coordinator. And
for HOPE, the organization that you mentioned earlier.
Yes. And I think I bugged the founders of the ministry a little too much. They were like, yeah, just come on. It's fine. But I mean, that was my heart and it was awesome. And within 2 months of that, I came on as being a paid social media coordinator. And then COVID happened and everything changed for everybody.
Yeah.
If you didn't live through 2020, I don't know who you are, but I'm jealous of you. Just kidding. Not actually. I'm very, very thankful for 2020. I think it was probably the most growth that I had seen in my life up to that point. But getting to see what ministry looks like in a completely different way.
Yeah.
But also getting to step into full-time ministry in a very different way. It was July of 2020 that I was asked to come on as director of the ministry. And so being based in Abilene, being stuck in Abilene, I cannot go anywhere. How do we touch these people, and how do we carry out the vision and the mission that we have been given? It was incredible. I never, ever, ever would have imagined anything close to what we saw. But the testimonies that came out of that time of the people in Kenya getting to come together and be Jesus to each other whenever we couldn't be there was phenomenal. Getting to see the ways that the Lord multiplied the things that they had. And it was incredible. But I had another one of those moments just a few months ago where the Lord said, hey, this thing that I've called you to, I'm asking you to lay it down. I really and truly thought that being with HOPE, working in Kenya, I mean, living full time out in the bush of Kajiado County.
Yeah.
That was really what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. Live amongst the Maasai people. My kids and the Maasai were going to be buds. I mean, that's what I envisioned. And I knew that, you know, that's something that the Lord had placed on my heart. But in October of this last year, the Lord said, "It's coming to an end. And I'm asking you to lay that down as well."
Yeah.
And I was like, but this is me. Like so much of who I saw myself to be was in that position, not realizing it, of like, wow, no, like I am a missionary in Kenya, even if I'm not able to be there. Like I am living out this calling that you placed on my life. And it's beautiful. Some of my best friends I've ever had live there. I see them as being family. And I genuinely love the things that we get to do. I love my part in it. I love everything about it. And the grieving process that I went through was something that I had no idea was coming. Even now, 6-8 months later, there's still so much grieving that happens on a daily basis, whether I realize it or not. But I left that position and came on staff at Beltway, and I'm now within the missions world, so I'm not completely disconnected from my heart. I serve now as fundraiser coordinator for all of our short-term mission trips that we send out, and so getting to work with those that are going and making sure that they're, fundraising in the way they need to.
Which is kind of funny as you say that. I'm connecting it with, initial joys of the idea of banking was like helping people make sure they have the loans or the finances they need for like these goals or these dreams or whatever to come true. And it's like, it's funny how many years later now you're in a role where it's like you're helping people acquire the funds they need to go be part of stepping into being the hands and feet of Jesus all over the world. And for a lot of these people, their very first time, and who knows what it's going to launch or ignite in them, kind of what it did for you. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's really, really sweet. But then on the flip side of that, I'm also, that's like global missions.
Yep.
I'm also a part of I'm the admin for the food pantry and benevolence ministries. And so that's like local outreach that I get to do every single day, and getting to talk with people and pray with people. When, at a very early stage in my life, that was something that I experienced. Food scarcity was something, maybe not that I necessarily faced and realized it, but my family was in a position where groceries were not something that we could acquire for ourselves.
Yeah.
And people within our church, our friends, our teachers would come by and get a grocery list from us, go grocery shopping for us, drop it off, unpack it into or unload it, I guess, into our pantry, and just love on us. And now, 20 plus years later, I get to kind of be that for someone else. And just really seeing how throughout my entire life, the things that the Lord has been growing me in and teaching me, I'm now getting to live out and be that for someone else.
Yeah.
And it's really, really awesome. So
that's really cool. So in this, you've obviously had multiple stages of what you did or what you focused on or what you thought it was going to be. And we did a great podcast a few weeks back, episode 32 with Jake Mills on assignment versus calling. I recommend everyone going and listening to. But in that, Hayley, and up to this point, I guess, how have you gained clarity, or what have you gained clarity about what the Lord has either called you into or put within you? I also wrote down earlier, you said that you heard the Lord say, "I'm preparing you." And so I guess a question I also wrote down was, have you gained greater clarity for what the Lord is preparing you for? Because there's been all these different seasons and stages of preparation.
Yeah, that's a really, really, really good question. And I think it's one of those that you sit on daily and you don't realize that you're sitting on it. But I think that, that podcast that you did with Jake, that episode, one, it is phenomenal. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. But I see kind of throughout my whole life that I was put on this earth to love those around me like Jesus loves them.
Yeah.
Getting to be the hands and feet of Jesus without actually saying his name. How can I love someone through just a smile. And I think for me, getting to see, I think for me, being able to love people like Jesus does, yes. But I think to a greater capacity, allowing them to see themselves through God's eyes. And I can see through every single one of these assignments, whether it was banking or insurance and talking with those clients on the phone, or getting to interact with, a college girl that, has absolutely no idea who she is and is just trying to kind of find her place in the world, to a young mom who's transitioning through, what is it? I'm no longer in college. I'm not really like an adult yet, but like I'm in this weird place, to life group leading, of being in this season of like 22 to like 35 of like, I don't know what life is, and like kind of meeting with people throughout that entire span to now where I am. It's how can I let you, or allow you to see rather, who you are and why you are. And I have said so many times, I don't know if it's something that like I dreamed up or if it's something that I heard from someone, but like the most important, significant, and impactful thing about you has absolutely nothing to do with who you are and like the things that you have worked so hard for, all of your accomplishments, your frames on your wall that have all of the really cool like certificates and things. Those are not you. Like it's the fact that you are a son or a daughter of the Most High God. That is the most impactful and significant thing about you. And I think for me, if I can get someone to see that, then my entire life is made. Yeah,
you're not a human doing. You're a human being.
Exactly.
And even with that line, I would also encourage people, go listen to episode 29 and 30, Nothing is Wasted. We had Eddie Smith on as our guest in that, and it was truly powerful. This idea, and this is kind of what we're talking about even today, this idea of defining and gaining clarity on what your purpose is, and realizing that your purpose is constant, though your assignments are different, and maybe your platforms are different. And sometimes we equate purpose with a position. And then we find ourselves confused, or we get a certain position and it feels good for a little bit, and then it kind of wanes and dies off, and it's like, wait, where was the joy? I thought that this was it. And so I wrote this down a minute ago, Hayley. I'm trying to remember what you said that made me write it down, but I wrote down, is purpose really that simple? And it was, you were talking about how if you can just love and serve someone without even having to speak a word or say the name Jesus, or serve them in such a way that they're able to see who they are and who the God that loves them is. Like, I think we wrestle with this idea of like, is purpose really that simple? And like, that's a hard thing to answer and wrestle with, because I feel like we try to make it, we believe it has to be like more grandiose than it is, or we have to figure out all these details, or we have to attach it with accomplishments. And it's like, is purpose really that simple? What would you say to someone who's wrestling with that question, like even now, or they're looking back on their life and maybe they've heard your story and they're thinking about, oh yeah, I mean, I've had all these different seasons that I've done stuff in. Like, what would you say to them, to that question of, is purpose really that simple?
I mean, I would say yes. Like, it is that simple. And I think that where it gets complicated is that we attach so much of that purpose to our identity. And we are like, oh no, like my identity has to be more than that. So like, let me attach other things onto this so that I can be better, or I can be bigger, so that I can feel more accomplished even without doing anything. Like, oh, this is my purpose in life. Like, I'm so cool. When in all actuality, I think that purpose is simple when we boil it down. yeah, I think that a lot of the complication comes from we attach so much of that to our identity whenever that is nothing to do with our identity.
And I think too, even we attach it to our ability or our power to make things happen. So
Yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
it's not, yes, that we go into like do mode and accomplish mode, but there's also this idea of, well, this is my purpose. Now knowing my purpose, I have to make this happen out of my power, out of my ability, because we attach our significance to it. And we have this, we wrestle with this, this thought, all of us do, of, well, I'll be more significant if I'm able to do more or accomplish more.
It's like perceived street cred. Like,
perceived street cred. I like that.
Like no one else knows this, but like I do. And therefore I can do so much more.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I've said this for years, and it's like the older I get and the more I walk with the Lord, the things that I have realized that are the most powerful, that have the ability to change lives and change perspective and even just change your understanding of who God is and what Jesus and the cross and his resurrection accomplished. Like, it's the simple things about the gospel that are the most powerful and the most life-giving.
Absolutely.
The things that I learned as a kid, and I guess just like chalked it up to being like elementary, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know that, but like moving on.
Right.
But it's like getting back to, no, like, what if it really is that simple?
Yeah,
Like,
it's that like Jesus plus of like Jesus by himself, like that was more than enough. But then for him to make the sacrifice that he did, and I think what strikes me so much about the gospel and the sacrifice that Jesus made was that my saying yes to him was not guaranteed. Like, he sacrificed his entire life. God himself sacrificed himself for me, not even for me, but for the possibility that I may say yes to him.
Yeah.
Like, and that to me is ludicrous and beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that the Jesus plus is like, well, let me make this more alluring to people, and like all these things that like he can do for them. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, like what he did is plenty. Like it's more than enough.
Yeah. It's, you know, I feel like there's a lot of people that are wrestling with this concept of purpose and what to do, especially, I mean, honestly, with 2020 shook the world.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people, and not in a bad way, honestly, in a good way, a lot of people that are asking themselves now, like, is this what I want to do forever? You know, whether it's a job or whether it's what they've focused their life accomplishments on, or their security in, or they're trying to get to the place of like, where do I walk out my purpose and where do I have most joy? And again, that's kind of the nature of the conversation that we had on episode 29 and 30 with Eddie Smith. But I think in a good way, the world we've been shook. I never know how to say the past tense. Shooketh.
That's not a real thing.
The world shooketh. But people are asking, like, what is my purpose? And I guess my challenge, and I don't know that we have a clear bow to like wrap this up on, which is great because, you know, the nature of a podcast is to create a dialogue and a conversation that is ongoing, and that at least is a starting point for you and anyone listening to like figure out and walk with. But it's like, we've so attached purpose to what we do. And is it actually more simple than that? Is it something that's already been done for us and then we do for others? Like what you said earlier about Jesus, like he laid down his life for the possibility of you.
Right.
And now the thing that you know about your life and that brings you joy, no matter what position you're in, is almost it's doing the same for other people. It is serving in such a way that you're laying your life down so that they have the possibility of knowing and receiving Jesus. Like, our purpose, our life truly can be that simple. You know, sometimes we think God is going to be, impressed with, all these extra things.
Right.
And honestly, I think he's more like, man, I just love you, and I'm proud of you.
Let me be with you.
Yeah, just let me be with you, and also like let me do this through you.
Amen. Yeah.
And try not to do it out of your own strength.
Yeah.
So what does the future look like for you, Hayley, in regards of like missions or ministry or job? Or is it really like I know I'm in this season, and so here I am?
It's both. I think, in having this conversation, like all of these different assignments and seasons that I have been in have taken place in like 6 years or less. Like it's been a fast track to get to where I am. And as I was interviewing for this position, I told leadership, I was like, my heart is to be where the Lord has me. And if that's here, I'm all in. If that's somewhere else, I'm all in. And I think that that's kind of how I've gone with it. But knowing that like I'm hearing the Lord say this to me, that's where I want to be. I want to be just absolutely in the center of where he's calling and where he's leading and where he's speaking. And so I really and truly have no idea what the future holds. I do know, though, that I'm in a very unique position now where I am actively involved in local outreach, and I have all of my connections that are in Kenya, but I also have this really incredible, awesome, I'm so excited about it, opportunity to grow relationships in South India and get to kind of take the things that the Lord has been growing in me and is doing in me right now and take those there. And I think kind of whenever I look at my life, whether I was going to be in Kenya or kind of wherever it was, I'm going to be kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, let me not actually like have like a home necessarily, but like, let's be in Abilene. Let's go to this place. Let's go to this place. And just truly getting to love on God's people. That's where I see myself being, whether that's in Abilene or India or going to Kenya. I mean, I have no idea. So,
as you talk about that, I think something that we all need to hear is like, we got to remember that the Lord brings his revelation in part.
Yeah.
On this side of heaven, on this side of eternity, his revelation comes in part, and it is ever unfolding.
Right.
And there's more being revealed. And sometimes we make these long-term life decisions based off of a piece of a revelation.
Absolutely.
Like it is absolutely just like the Lord to put something within you as a 12-year-old for Kenya, so that as a 20-something-year-old, you go to Kenya and something awakens in you, but you interpreted it as my whole life is given to Kenya. But maybe it was just a small little part like of revelation, something that makes you come alive and discover something more that's in you. And then once that's activated, then there's another piece that comes, and there's another piece that comes. And so it's kind of this like exciting, adventurous journey with the Lord, people. Like sometimes we're like, oh, the Lord spoke this. Okay, thanks God, I got it. And then like we give our whole life to it. But what if it's more of just part after part, these small secrets being revealed, and like the joy of life and walking with the Lord is, one, hearing his voice and being obedient to it, but then being able to look back and see how all of these pieces and patterns have led to and developed something we never thought it would be. Yeah. But it just reminds me, like, the Lord reveals in part. We see in part. And so, part of going from glory to glory is there's a constant movement and adaptation that's happening in us. And so I don't know. I kind of want people to sit with that, and I'm going to sit with that too, of just like, don't make a full-time life decision about a job or a particular assignment, based off of of a revelation. Maybe it is long term. Maybe it is for the entirety of your life. Maybe it's just a small piece, and the Lord is just so excited about what he's developing in you. And it just takes that piece being revealed for you to discover something more that's within you that's been placed by the Lord.
Right.
You know, that's exciting to me. Like I have this thing that I've been processing through of like a need for greater adventure with the Lord. You know, it's actually, so we've talked about the life plan on this podcast because of Eddie Smith, but part of my replenishment cycle, part of what like brings my soul deep, like rejuvenation, is adventure. Like I have to have adventure in my life. And so, you know, I'm thinking through like, man, I want more adventure with the Lord. Cause sometimes I think, again, it's kind of been like, okay, I heard you, God, thanks, I've got this. And like for, you know, years or decades, like I run with something and the Lord's like, hey, I love you. You're doing great with that. But also that was just a piece. Like I have more to reveal to you.
Right.
And like, are you willing to lay it down? Are you willing to step into something new? Are you willing to go into the future without a definite, this is where we land? You know, there was a sermon that Pastor David here at Beltway did a few weeks ago as of this recording. It was part of our Fearless series called As We Face the Future. And it was this idea that certainty comes not from what, but from who. And this idea that we all are wanting this roadmap to, you know, destiny, to purpose, to whatever. But instead of a map, really, we've been given a guide, and it's about walking with him and journeying with him. And sometimes we only see the step that's in front of us. But we got to trust that the guide is leading us and that he's good, that he's trustworthy, and that his heart is for us. And so...
Well, and something else that I do, not often enough, but blogging, because, you know, I'm a girl in the 2020s.
Yeah, that's just part of being a girl, right? To blog.
Absolutely. It's really cute. If you want to go check it out, contact me and I'll give you the link. Just kidding. But I wrote a blog post, it was probably 2020. Yeah, early 2020, of like, I want like the Fidelity green arrow in front of me of like aligning like, or highlighting to me every single step, or like, you know, kind of like the vague outline, or like I want like a floodlight on my path. But in all reality, the visibility that the Lord gives me is the equivalent of a birthday candle. Like I cannot even necessarily see like my next step, but I know that he's there with me right there. And like I can see like my nose, like that's all that I need to see. But I think that getting to have that equivalent of a birthday candle or like a Christmas tree light, like just a single one, even just that like lights up an entire room, like, to some extent. And
for sure.
I think within that though, it's like, I have to be so close to this light in order to see anything. And like, can I be this close to you, Jesus, all of the time, and just be so enwrapped in you that regardless of where my foot lands, I know that 100% you placed it there. Yeah. I think that that's the biggest part of that.
Even as you're talking about this imagery of like, say a somewhat dark room with like a candle or like Christmas lights or something like that, it's light and it does light up the room, but it's also dim enough, right? You know, that there's still lack of clarity on like the outskirts. And as you said that, like I was thinking, because we love like candlelight services at Christmas time, you know, but there's something about like a dim light creates an atmosphere of like intimacy. Yeah. Like, you know, it's romantic in some settings. It's powerful. It's meaningful. It's reflective. It's contemplative. And even in like these, you know, when we do Christmas Eve services and we do candlelights, there is like this full awareness that in holding this like small, tiny little light that kind of like lights up our nose and our face, there is like an acknowledgement of an intimate presence of God that is with us. Yeah. And sometimes we want that big bright light, spotlight, whatever, to just shine on and blow up and reveal everything. But it's interesting that we're drawn to like the intimacy of a dim light, because it creates presence, it creates trust, it creates a sense of being with, like, and being close. And I don't know, I don't know that I'm going anywhere in particular with that, other than it's just odd and it's interesting that as you were talking about like a Christmas light or a candle, I had that thought that those kind of lights create a place of intimacy, and more of what the Lord is calling us into is a place of intimacy with Him, trusting that He is there, feeling and discerning and knowing His presence, and kind of getting to see the beauty of what light puts out without having to see everything around in full clarity, but knowing who is with you. Right.
Well, and I think within that too, if like, I think of, you know, if each of us has this light and each of, you know, us is in that, that place with the Lord and operating fully within the things that He is asking you to do, I can kind of tie that back to that purpose of like, if I'm this close to the Lord all of the time, like I'm going to be operating within my purpose. But if it's just me in that Christmas Eve service, that's the only light that's going to be there. But then whenever you look around at the entire congregation and all of them operating within their purpose and they're that close to Jesus all of the time operating in that way, the entire room is lit up. Like there is no need for the overhead light at that point.
Right.
Like this is what the body of Christ is. Of
That's
like
good.
Each of us operating in that way within our simple purpose of like, I just have this candle in front of me. Like, this is my purpose. It is simple. Here I am. It's you and me.
Simple candle.
But then it's the person next to me and their simple candle and the person next to them. And on all sides of us, to the point where there's no need for the overhead light. All of us are doing this. This is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. But it's all of us working together to accomplish the things that the Lord has for the entire kingdom of God.
That's good.
Bringing that to earth, impacting, I mean, even just a room to the point where light's no longer needed because He's there.
Yeah, that's so good. Let's just end with that.
Yeah, put a bow on it. I love it.
Let's sit on that. That's so good. That truly is like what the body of Christ is supposed to be. It's not a building. It's not four walls and a roof. It's not, you know, the gifts of a few that are at work for the sake of ministry and reaching people. It's everyone operating in their purpose and walking with this intimacy in the Lord, being close to Him, and not necessarily knowing what 1 year, 5 year, 10 years looks like from now, but knowing that this is what today looks like, and I'm walking with the Lord and I'm trusting Him to be my guide. Maybe I don't have a map to the final destination, but what if it's not about a final destination, but it's about the journey of who you're with? And so anyways, that's awesome. We'll just end right there. Hayley, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your story and your journey. And I know some of it's fun and exciting, and some of it is nerve-wracking, and some of it doesn't make sense, and some of it is full of grief and still is. And I mean, that's part of life. That's part of all of our seasons and part of all of our journeys. But it's been really exciting to see and to witness what the Lord is doing in you and through you. And even again, just activating that peace within you of like, this is your purpose. It's to walk with the Lord, to love and to serve people, and to lay down your life for them so that they have the hopes of knowing Jesus in the same way that you know Him. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing, but you can walk that out. And that's more of the heart of God than what you accomplish out of your own strength. So awesome. Thank you. Well, everyone, we hope you have a great week. Be blessed. And remember, God is moving in your life beyond Sundays.